Afternoon, Middle. Good afternoon, Middle. It is so wonderful and a much needed salve for this particular soul to be with all of you today. I'm not going to pretend that things are easy right now and out there, but for the time being, we are all together in here. And I want you to absorb that and feel that. I want to say thanks before I start to my dear sister Jackie for inviting me to this sacred pulpit and for the work that you all have been doing. You are light in this darkness, all of you, and I so appreciate you, and I continue to appreciate you. And the other folks here at Middle, Mackie and Gloria and others, and Natalie and John. I wish I lived here, truthfully. I wish I lived here because I'd be here every day. Every day. You'd be sick of me. And it wouldn't just be, Lunar New Year, but here I am. And I also want to thank John and everyone, all the musicians. Like, my goodness, the talent and artistry in this church, right? The talent and artistry in this church. If you are feeling low, just feel the talent and artistry in this church. This is just like scratching the surface, right? Someone said, well, you need a harmonica. Someone in the back row will come run up, play for you. It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, so listen. It is Lunar New Year. It is Black History Month. And I think there are reasons that we aren't fully appreciating why and how these things are coinciding. Right? We celebrate the Lunar New Year because of the movement of the moon and the earth, forces that are bigger than us. And we celebrate Black History Month because it is a history that is us and is bigger than us. And I also want to start by reminding whoever's listening that I'm an immigrant. I am an immigrant. I'm a first-generation immigrant. It does not give me a special standing, but it gives me a special heart for what is going on and for the suffering that is being inflicted on us unnecessarily. Right? So I am an immigrant. And by the by, I'm also a citizen. And I'm going to talk about both of these things today, but I just need to say these things out loud. Because someone who looks like me says out loud in an unafraid way that I'm an immigrant. And someone who looks like me and sounds like me and says, I am a citizen of the United States of America. We got to say those things out loud. We got to say these things out loud. And thank you to Gloria for that prayer. That prayer. Because we got to be praying more. We have to be praying more. So the title of my sermon today is Everyday Insistence. Initially I thought I should talk about everyday resistance. But there's something about the mood and the mode of our times that I feel like we need to be thinking about insistent forces. Insistent forces, not just reactive ones, but insistent ones. And I'm going to get to that some more. And when I chose the scripture today from Paul's letter to the Ephesians, one of his so-called prison letters, letter that he, or whoever wrote the letter, wrote in the context of empire, wrote to a church that was not fully yet a church. Which is also to say, to remind people that they had solidarity and unity ahead of themselves. But there were forces of evil going to challenge them at every step. At every step. So what does Paul say? Take on the full armor of God. Now, I'm not one to normally take on militaristic metaphors. But I think we need it. I think we need it. Because in order to fight this fight, we've got to protect ourselves. And we have to assume and take on things like the full armor of God. And again, it's an armor that is coming from something bigger than us. There's a cunning that evil has to make us feel like the world is getting small, that it is shrinking upon us. You can see the ways in which people are recoiling, both preemptively and in real time, in fear. And fear makes us, again, feel small. This is the cunning of evil. But my goodness, we are big. And we come from big people, and we come from big forces that are bigger than this evil. That are bigger than this evil. And we were watching evil operate and inflict trauma and drama in real time. In this time. And it is an effort to reclaim a nation and our spirits. We know and we see and we're living through a vengeful fascism. Brutal authoritarianism is the next step. And it's driven by things and forces and ideas that we have been fighting for, in this community especially, from the very beginning. It's anti-blackness, anti-immigrants, anti-queer, anti-trans. It's to hold on, they're trying to hold on ferociously to this American dream and casting us as the characters of the American nightmare. I'm reminded of a dialogue. I love this. I call them windows? I don't know what you call this row of saints. And there was a dialogue that St. Audre Lorde and St. James Baldwin had. And Baldwin, being Baldwin, both truth-telling and hard-hitting, but also hopeful, was saying that the American project was still redeemable. And Audre, being even more truthful, was saying, it's never been the American dream. It's always been the American nightmare that I have lived. The American nightmare is with us. The American nightmare is with us. But it doesn't have to stay with us. That's the thing. It doesn't have to stay with us. We have been fighting, people like us, our ancestors have been fighting this fight for a very long time. So I'm an immigrant, I'm a citizen. And one of the contentious spaces right now is around birthright citizenship. And people are thinking, well, what does that have to do with me? And I will tell you, I am not here. My family is not here. My precious ones are not here if it were not for the institutional gift of birthright citizenship. Think about the 14th Amendment that overturns the Dred Scott case, where the United States was saying we will not recognize enslaved Africans as citizens. And the 14th Amendment, 1867, says, yes, we will. Yes, we will. And our fates are interconnected. 1898, the U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark. A Chinese American who was a son of Chinese immigrants, but born in the United States, leaves the United States, tries to re-enter the United States, says no. And he presses a case that goes to the Supreme Court that affirms the 14th Amendment, that people born on this soil are citizens. This is what we are claiming and reclaiming. And we know all the cases, but I want to remind you of just one more. The Dreamers Act, 2001. The media and other myth tellers will say this is about Latinos. You know who the first dreamer was? A South Korean born in Brazil, Theresa Lee. Theresa Lee. She was the first dreamer. Why am I naming these? Because I'm trying to get us to remind ourselves and to remember about our interconnected fates. Our interconnected fates. It's Lunar New Year. It fell on January 29th, which, by the way, this year was my birthday. I know, right? Okay. And we think of Lunar New Year as a time where we leave the bad luck of the last year behind us and welcome the good fortune of the new year. And I know it's hard this time around to say that we're welcoming the good fortune, but think about the word fortune. Its roots mean fate, fortuna. Fate is not inevitable. I want you to think about this. Fate is not an inevitability. We participate in making fate. So it's not just that we remember the year of the wood snake or the Korean saying the blue snake, I don't know why, and say whatever luck and fate may come. But we want to insist on a certain fortune and fate before us. That's not to caprice or not to the evil that is coming our way. But we can participate in making a fate, our fortune. We can welcome that good fortune. I'm thinking about these, and calling them far right is not adequate. The plutocrats, the white supremacists, these agents and forces of evil. They're reminding me of this, famous passage from Friedrich Nietzsche's Gay Science called The Madman, the famous paragraph 125, where Nietzsche says this madman enters a public square in broad daylight, shining the lantern of reason and saying, "Where's God? We have killed him." And there's this extraordinary line that Nietzsche says. The madman asks the question, who gave us a sponge to wipe away the horizon? And I have to say that these plutocrats and oligarchs are acting as if they have that sponge to wipe away that horizon of possibility, of justice, of humanity. But do not concede the horizon to them. Do not concede the horizon to them. They don't have a sponge, they may have a chalk eraser. Right? But they don't have that sponge to wipe away the horizon, because the horizon is there for us. The horizon is there for us. This past week, my beautiful wife, Amy, had the brilliant idea that we should get out of the country on Inauguration Day. So on the occasion of my birthday, she took me to Costa Rica. I had never been before. I highly recommend it. Next Sunday, Costa Rica. But, she had the wisdom to say, we need to not be in the country when this inauguration of this so-called president happens, to give us some distance and space to prepare ourselves for what's coming. So while we were in Costa Rica, we had the extraordinary experience of being in the rainforests of Costa Rica. Now, if you haven't seen these, you really can't believe it. This lush vegetation, and in these mighty trees, especially these ficus trees that have these roots that are evident to the world. And they have roots that go below the ground and are interconnected with other trees. So you're not just looking at one mighty tree. They call them first growth. In the United States, we call it old growth. But the old growth is always connected to the new growth under the ground. In the United States, you see this with the aspen trees in New Mexico and Colorado, and where I'm from in California, you see this with the sequoias. These trees survive. These trees survive because of their interconnected roots. When one tree is hurt or cut down, the nutrients from all the interconnected trees are sent to heal that tree. So you might see like a sequoia or an aspen tree cut, a mighty one cut, but it's not dead. It's not dead. It still lives in that network of trees. This administration, these people are trying to cut down our mighty trees. Our mighty ficuses, our mighty aspens, our mighty sequoias, but they do not know what has been sustaining them and sustaining us for centuries. We are not just the visible branches and roots and trunks, but we are that mighty set of roots underneath the ground. Underneath the ground. So if you are hurting and you are hurting, we're going to send the best of ourselves to you. So we think about this also in the context of history. Black history does not begin on February 1st and end on February 28th. Asian American history does not begin on May 1st and end on May 31st. Latino and queer history does not begin on October 1st and end on October 31st. Those histories are everyday histories. And it is not for the government to declare whether we celebrate them or not. I don't really need to see a black Republican trot it out for Black History Month and say, now we celebrate, right? Because we remember our ancestors. We remember Dred Scott. We remember Harriet Tubman. We remember Wong Kim Ark. We remember Frederick Douglass and all of them, because they laid those roots down for us. So when we're hurting and suffering in this moment, feel the nutrients from them coming to us. You talk about mutual aid, right? You talk about mutual aid. And you know what? You know what the other word is for these groves of trees? Tribe. We are part of this tribe that has been sustaining us and will continue to sustain us. I was reminded again of Martin Luther King's words in his last book, Where Do We Go From Here? You know, where he says, power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Now, King had to find respite from the evil to write those words. He rented a house by himself in Jamaica because he needed some critical and spiritual distance. So I'm giving you something paradoxical. You need some distance from the evil, but you need some proximity to your roots, right? So that everyday insistence is not just you insisting that things are okay, but that everyday insistence is the roots of all those ancestors coming up through the ground, coming up into our bodies and into our spirits, and saying, we're here with you. We are here with you. And we are you. We are you. I know this feels like winter. I know this feels like a winter of discontent. But in the winters when things grow underground, without flowering yet, but the spring will come. Another harvest will come. I promise you. But we have to endure the winter. We have to endure the winter. it is a moment where I need to say that I love you all. I truly love you all. You're well loved, and we are not the characters of the American nightmare. We're the fullest expression of the American dream. We really are. We really are. And we are not just that, but we are worthy of love and justice. Now and for all the days. Just to say one thing briefly, John Del Cueto wrote me an email in preparation for today asking me what kind of music, look, he says, he's very sweet and very thoughtful. He says, David, I'm Latino, and I know Latino music and I know Black music, but I'm not really sure what to do for Asian music since it's Lunar New Year. And I wanted to say, well, Lunar New Year's actually for all of us because it's about the moon, anyhow. But, and he said, well, what music would you like to have that represents something like an Asian sensibility around this? So I thought about this, and I thought about this, and I thought about this, and I said, I think I want to go with the classic Asian song, As by Stevie Wonder. Because when you hear it, you will hear this, not just a wish, but a conviction by Stevie that love will always be there until everything is all spent. It will always be there. There is love for us always, always. Amen.